Hi, good morning. And it's March 16th today. Today is going to be all about that speaker. And its cone. So I think a good start here is a careful examination of how it's constructed. Maybe I should actually start by saying what my intentions are here. My intention is to just lay it all back as best as possible, glue it back in the center here where it was originally, patch up any of these big holes or tears, and just try to make the speaker work with its original cone. So a couple things to think about here. Now, one of the reasons I'm interested in doing this is, it's the easy way out. That's what I think. I guess you could recone the whole thing, and maybe as speakers go, this one's an easy one to do. I've never done it. I don't have the cone material. So I think certainly the first attempt is to try to just restore this. And part of it is that this surround here looks pretty good. It looks like it's still fixed in place. Looks like it's pinched under this piece here. It still has a wee bit of flexibility in it. It's not terribly misshapen or anything like that. It's very, very wiggly here, but very stiff here. So, with that being intact, that's a big part of making the speaker good to begin with. A lot of speakers tear around the outside here. I've never seen one rip itself away here. So it looks to me like what's probably happened here is oh, that's funny. Somebody's written something in there. It looks like HS. Somebody with a pencil's gone like that. Probably part of the manufacturing and just checking off that this one's been checked or something. Something of that sort. So use some kind of black tarry glue here, which in itself is pretty intact. And you gotta assume that the paper's curling up a little bit, and that's what we're really seeing here. And if I just kind of lob in the glue here and then push this into its proper position and then somehow hold it there, which I think is the trick. How do you hold it there while the glue dries? So that's one thing I'm still thinking about. So this is one piece of paper that's overlapped, and you can see the overlap mark here. Curiously enough, it's in a curve shape. You can't really see that, can you? Maybe if I do this. There, now you can see the curved shape here that they've used. Maybe their thinking is it's less likely to fail along that. I don't know. I don't know how much thinking was going on. So the assumption here is somebody put their hand through from behind. Doesn't explain this very well, but kind of figuring out what happened to it would be helpful in trying to decide how to repair it. Let's take a look down here. So I'm looking at that edge there, and it would look like either the paper's been overlapped or it's separating here in some way. You can see right down in amongst the spider area here. Why don't we take a good close look at that? Use the other camera. And I just think close observation is going to help me in the end when I go to finish this off. Flex the cone a little bit here. There, you can see the cone relative to the piece it needs to be glued on. And it looks to me like it should be settled all the way down. Pushed all the way down. What's going on up here when I do that? Don't have enough light in my shop here. So it's not obvious from on top how far it should go. Now, is there really any reason to push it down? Why not just glue it right where it is? The paper has adopted its position because of stresses and strains in it. If I push this down and glue it, those stresses and strains are going to pull on my glue. It's pretty stiff paper. Probably easier just to glue it exactly as it is. And a big part of that would be gluing it sufficiently to make an airtight seal. So we'll look at the support structure. This is commonly called a spider, maybe because it has a web-like. Well, this one's not very web-like, but in later ones, it's kind of a webbing. Later speakers, kind of a webbing in here. And the job of the spider here is to hold the cone in exactly the right position. The cone and the voice coil. So they'll slide into the magnet slot. Now, how come that's pulled up the way it is? It's not like the way they've shaped this. I don't know if you can figure it out. Can you figure it out how they've shaped it? They've cut fingers into this material. I don't know what this material is. They cut fingers into it, and the fingers run a distance. They curve around, and that's where the flexibility comes from. These fingers can bend up and down. Now they're all pulled up. Well, nothing I can do about that, I don't think. That might be from any one of a million things, but could be the cone. Maybe this cone's been shrinking and shrinking and pulling and pulling. I don't know. Now we look at this edge here. So the cone paper, oh, you can see the cone, look at that. It's layer and layer and layer. And it look like some of these layers are missing, like they've just come off and disappeared. I don't think there's any evidence of such a thing. Now this part of the cone's badly distorted. Yeah, really badly distorted. Let's have vertical line. So this is some kind of a seam. Looks like a little bit of glue there. So this is close. This is the other side of that seam we saw. It's like a 1-inch overlap on this curve. And it broke right near the curve. Maybe where it's overlapped it would be stiffer. Maybe the stiffness protected where the cone is overlapped, but right adjacent to it. This part took the stress and has cracked. And what stress? We still don't really understand what's happened here. I mean, how could it get into this gnarly shape without something punching it? Can it just slowly crack and split and bend? And I don't believe it. If somebody would smash this from behind, maybe not realizing what they've done. I gotta turn this up. Get it look all the way around. Whoops. Oh, the camera took a dive there. So here's where it's really just ripped. You have to guess every time I flex this, like a crack like that is liable to finish off and open up. So I did push it a bit yesterday. It didn't seem to just crumble apart. It took a fair bit of pushing and bending. You can bend this roughly into the correct shape and then try to what? Try to stabilize it with additional paper put on top with glue. Ooh, there are some cracks. So this is quite typical of what happens to these speakers. They develop these radial cracks right around the outside edge, but this is probably a response to the deformation here and the strain and stress it set up when somebody punched it. So for me, it's a question of I work on this. Am I going to make it so bad that it's shot completely and you can never make any kind of decent volume out of it, or can I work it back safely into its position? I don't have many alternatives here. Okay, so another question here, which I raised yesterday, was what about soaking the paper to make it pliable? That just sounds like a terrible idea. I mean, on this speaker, I've done this before with other speakers, and it's had an amazingly helpful effect. It's not going to correct this. I'm not going to wet this and it's just going to all float back, and that's not going to happen. So now the next question would be, how do you approach this anyway? What's the order here? Do we try to glue this down? Like this is all pulled out of shape because of all these folds here. So I think I have to restore the shape of the cone first. So what I could do here is I can put additional paper over it, like glue-soaked paper, and then work from both sides here. I get my hand in behind and try to stick it all together. So at least it's one piece. Oh boy. I was also wondering about when I do go to glue this back in, how do I hold it? And I had pictured an elastic band in there, but now looking at it, well, that's a fat chance getting an elastic band around there. Well, might be able to. Depends how well reshaping this goes. So what I would need to do this now is some paper. I usually use paper towel. The only reason is because there's some over there. I don't know if it really matters exactly what kind of paper you use. People use coffee filters, maybe because a coffee filter has a bit of this shape, but it really doesn't. If you take a coffee filter and flatten it out, it's a flat piece of paper with corrugations to give it the shape. And I don't think coffee filter paper is any particular wonder. So the process would be, I guess I have to wet this to make the new paper glue down onto it. So would I try to do the whole thing at once? Or try to restore shapes in certain areas? Like maybe I try to get this flattened out first, and I'll let that heal up and then come back and do some more? Or just try to do the whole thing at once? So if I try to do the whole thing at once, I'm going to be challenged by all kinds of little problem spots that are going to develop here as I'm trying to make this shape. So I think doing the whole thing at once is way too much. What if I fix the parts that aren't that bad first, because they aren't that bad? Like this down in here is actually shaped pretty correctly. Man, I should just, fix these up so that this part is not going wonky while I work over here. Keep good what is good already. Well, I think that'd be the plan then. The plan would be start over here, fix these up. Would I even try partial gluing in here? I don't think so. I don't think that'd be the way. And then I'll just kind of work my way around, kind of fixing one by one each of these problems as separately as possible. So, that's a problem, that's a problem, that's a problem. In here, there's all kinds of things. So maybe I would just, maybe try to patch this part first. See, I think this paper is splitting as I'm doing this. I think this is a new split right here. The misshapenness of this cone is not that important, I don't think. I think the reason the cone, they use a cone, if they used a flat sheet and you have the speaker pushing here, then you can imagine the flat sheet would just flap back and forth. But if they use a cone, then it can't, it's stiff, right? Because of the shape of it, it's stiff. So the conical shape is to stiffen it. And you use stiff cardboard too, but it's really the shape. Of course, with this blown away now, if you were to operate this, you can imagine this will move up and down. Even if you stuck the cone to it, this would move up and down, but the movement would not be transmitted all the way through the cone to the edge here. Instead, it would be absorbed by the various weaknesses in here. You just have a little bit of conic action. You can quote me on that one, conic action. That's what we're doing. We're working on the conic action here. So I'm going to stop now. I'm going to ponder what I just came up with. Come back, think a little bit more about it, and start working on it. Because this kind of thing, you get one shot, more or less. I'm thinking about a speaker in a radio I worked on some time ago where I attempted a cone repair. really the speaker needed to be replaced. It's a really nice sounding speaker when it's in good shape, but the owner wasn't interested in that, and he asked me to do what I could. Boy, I glued the living daylights out of it. I glued it. It didn't work. I re-glued it. I really made a schmozzle. But it sounded kind of okay when I was done. So the key thing, I think, is to block all these leaks so no air can go through the cone, and make the cone stiff, even if it's in a funny shape, so the shape won't be springy. You do that with lots of glue. Yeah, my guess is we can make this thing work almost like new now. I'm feeling pretty good about it. I'm gonna go away and think about it though. So normally I do this with just some ordinary paper towel, but I'm not gonna. This one I'm gonna use this stronger shop towel material. Just cut bandages and stick them on. That's the idea. So the first one we want to try here, I think, really is this simple crack here. I also normally don't cut the material with the scissors. I tear it, thinking that the torn edge is somehow easier to lay down on the speaker, which is probably true. But really it's probably because I'm just too lazy to get out the scissors. So I'm going to put that in there like that. Out to about here. Okay, now my magic elixir, which is a white material on a white plate. You can't even see it. This is about 50-50 ordinary wood glue and water. That's all this is. This is so wet, I didn't bother wetting that paper first. Okay. I can probably go on and do another one or two of these. Let's go after this one. Need a much larger at the end. Let's try this. All the way up into here. We'll do that with a separate piece. This piece, I have to actually reshape it. I didn't think about this quite enough. Should try to reshape it here. This is way over too far. And way too much stuff down here too. Too wet. to do like a reinforcement right around the outside here in the end. Okay, now if I can get this just a little more into its real normal shape, how would I do that? Can't very well stand here. I didn't think this part out very well. Again, the main thing is sealing up the holes. The shape, as long as it's stiff, the shape won't matter. And this is going to be stiffened by all these band-aids I'm putting in. Okay, so the name of the game now, I think, is just leave this to go stiff. Oh, I got all this glue here. I do some more. Do some more. Yeah, I don't know. This is also going to start solidifying the shape of this in the shape it's in. So when this dries, it's going to be like that. I'm not going to be able to move it. Maybe I put a little weight in here on it. What would be ideal? What would be ideal would be, oh, I just put my finger through it, I think, right here. The ideal thing is to leave it alone, or it's just going to fall apart even more and more, or go ahead and put the next piece in. It looks like I can't reshape this. I'm just going to have to freeze it kind of like it is. I need this to be up pretty tight though, so it has to have some reshaping for it to work well down here. Just a matter of straightening that right out. Okay, let's go for another piece. Let's keep going. In this case, we need a big wide chunk. The objective is to flatten this out as much as possible. You know what I could use to squeeze it is some packed in cloth, packed in rags. Okay, I gotta go get something here. Okay, new idea. Pack in some rags in behind. Like a decorative rag. This area here. Pack is the word. So this is not going to fold up very tightly. Well, I must have flipped it through the glue. Okay, we'll just glue this right in here. This may not be the best idea. Some ideas are good in your head, but not so good when they come out. I guess I want this pushing forward just a little bit. This is too big. Oh, more decorative cloth. Well, it's definitely pushing it up. Oh yeah, it's pushing back already. Okay. How did that help? Did that help? Is that some kind of improvement there? Oh, look at it now. She's really distorted. This maybe was not a good idea. Not a good idea, because now I would need to press something back onto it this way. And that thing would have to press onto it with all this gluey paper and not get glued to it. Actually, that's not too bad the way I have it. I just have to stay here with my fingers on it the whole time. So put another cloth on top. But I have to do a separator between the cloth. What would that separator be? It would be a plastic. It would be plastic. It would be like cellophane or what? Or plastic sheet. The idea would be put the paper, put the sheet, put more big pile of cloth in here, put pressure on it, try to sandwich this a little bit. The risk here is stuff like this is going to happen and I won't know it. Well, let's just keep going forward with it here. So I have a nice piece here. Put that in or do this one. This is cracking here. It's cracking. I think the cracks are increasing as I go. Need a smaller piece for that. Crack. Okay, here it comes. In the end, I might just have to fill this with something. Literally, just fill it. Fill it with glue. That's what I would fill it with. Yeah, it seems to want to go back to its original shape a little bit. Okay, looks like this area next. Okay, I think I got a nice piece here, ready to go. I think maybe when I put the wet cloth on, it softens up the paper underneath right away. So this is the one I want to squeeze back. It does bring this closer. Closes this gap a bit. Okay, another piece. Another piece. We're almost done. Yeah. Done like dinner. That's where we might be here. Okay, rapidly cutting a piece. Using the precision a blind person might use on that. That's way too big. But we do want to stiffen this whole area up. So let's go with the big. Let's go with the big. So I'll use up the remainder of my glue over here. Okay. Just one big whack, big honker here. Sticky. This is not nearly as wet as the other sheets. Okay, so the idea now is I'm going to push a cloth onto that. A bunch of cloth, a bunch of rags actually. Get rid of the glue plate. Okay, now. I'm really not going to know what's happening here. See a problem. Okay, I can see the problem area. Let's just examine what's happened here. Right in here, I've literally pushed the cone down and it's split open a little bit. So I need to push it back up. Push it up with this. Try to push it up.
May not matter much. As long as things are sealed. Again, I really don't know what this looks like up above, but I think that's better like that. And a little bit more in here. Well, I don't know what to think. I think we're just gonna walk away and let that cook for quite a few hours, and we'll have to come back and see what happened to it. Got my fingers crossed, though. I think that's an important factor on this particular repair. Okay, let's see what we've got here. Now this may not be dry yet. This is kind of like a halfway checkpoint. Let's see what we've ended up with. It's fantastic. Well, it's a lot better looking than it did when I started. Okay, so we got all kinds of caps. Oh, this is really, really wet here and gone soft. You know, I put the plastic bag over it. I kind of sealed this off so it wouldn't dry. I think I'm going to leave it uncovered and just dry like this now. I might even want to pull this back part out here. Let this kind of go down a little bit. Well, it's only you know, phase 1 of a 19-phase process here. Great. Now I've got to go out for a while, so when I come back, this will be dry and stiff. Well, lots and lots of time has gone by now. It's late in the afternoon, and here we go. Let's just see. Oh, it's gone hard. That's good. Still looks damp in here. So there's a big gap here. I'm sure there's a little bit of fiddling around I need to do to really 100% seal this. And I'm thinking a bit about how to glue the center here. And I had been thinking about putting glue in and then somehow attaching the paper this way. I think that might be a mistake, because that would put strain and stress from the paper cone on this cardboard tube, which has the voice coil on it, which is going up and down with not very much clearance at all around the magnet here. And you can't see it, but there's also an outside very, very tight spacing. So we can't afford to have this tube twist. And the tube is what's being held by that structure underneath. That's holding it nice and steady. So I think I should just leave this the way it is and glue in this gap here, just by dribbling in glue. I think that's the best approach to get my dribble in glue here. Okay, so this is just some very thick sort of general purpose glue here. Ooh, I just poked a hole with the so I'm hoping this will kind of run down in the gap. So I'm laughing because of the last speaker I did. Kind of ended up looking a little like this. Glue everywhere. It's not going down. Not going down. This glue is pretty thick. I also need to seal this. This has to be airtight.
Hmm.
Well, it's pretty hard to know that this is all sealed up. Okay, well, there's no coming back from that. It is what it is now. Okay, I'll let that dry for quite a while. Well, it's in the early evening now, and I want to give this guy a test and just see what it sounds like now. So we're going to do that with this. I have to run a DC current through a field coil. Okay, let's see what it sounds like. Well, that's pretty quiet still. But I think the way I'm testing this is not giving a true example of what it would sound like. The main thing is it's making sound. Let's hope for a little more volume. Okay, one last try at this. I'll try to power the voice coil with the output of this radio. Here's what's on the radio.
Another 4 million doses more than previously scheduled for delivery in May and June. The question now is whether there will be changes to how those extra shots will be allocated.
There you go. That's where we're at so far with that. Jeepers, is that bad? Is that bad? Should I expect it to work better? You know, I don't know if I have the right field coil current going in there or anything. But the bottom line is it's working. So I think the attention turns to the receiver once again from here. Try to get the receiver to make some sound come out of that speaker. Thanks a lot for watching today, and see what happens tomorrow.